administered way. But without further ado, Mr. Longfellow will get us started.
So my OQ is Orestes' murder considered justice, or is it revenge in this case?
Does anybody want to talk first? I think we talked about this in class a little bit. You seem to still
Definitely, we talked about this in class. I think it could be taken two different ways. Orestes can be considered justice, knowing that he's killing the person that killed his father, to take the throne, which is rightfully his, but also revenge for the anger that it might have caused him for his mother to do such an act.
It's a very gray area, just because it was the reason why he did it was also that he was very angry, and that anger, that fuel to kill her is kind of the source of where revenge would come from. But in this situation, I think he thought it was justice because he was an eye for an eye, because that's kind of what we've been seeing over the course of the 3 plays.
Also, it seems like he's a little bit unsure at the end of the libation bears too, because then he starts questioning himself. He starts telling himself initially this was the just thing to do, this was right, and then at the beginning of Eumenides, he's cleansing himself from this act that he committed. So I'm sure he feels somewhat of. I feel that he's suffering because he had to kill his mother. I don't know if he necessarily regrets it, but maybe to some extent he does.
Yeah.
Because it was his own mother.
On 223, he's is kind of freaking out because he's did she do it or not? Did I do the right thing? He's having a lot of second thoughts. And the chorus was oh, death calls when she's gone, but oh, for you, the survivor, suffering is just about to bloom. I think it's a lot, he has a lot of guilt and regret because it was his mother, but he goes back to say no, you were my father's death. Even if I have to suffer the work of the agony and all the race of man because he killed his mother, he's no, I did this for the right reason, this was just, I had to do this, I should have done this, but it's the right thing to do, but I think he's still kind of struggling with it.
Yeah. I definitely think because on page 191 he talks about how Apollo was this voice in the Winters of Disaster, in line 280, and apparently Apollo speaks to him and says, "Gore them like a bull," he called, "or pay their debts with your own life, one long career of grief." He says, "I can still hear the god, a high voice ringing with winters of disaster, piercing the heart within me, warm and strong, unless I hunt my father's murderers." And I think this could be considered justice in a way, because if the gods are telling you to do something, as we've seen previously, it's just in the mortal line because the gods told them to do it. So it's kind of this divine intervention. And I think that also makes it difficult to decipher whether or not it's vengeance, was that the word you used? Revenge. Or if it was justice, because I think it could be revenge, but I think if it's of godly intent, I think it could also revenge seems very much a selfish type of act, and I think because Apollo told him within the story, I could see how it could be considered just.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's justice because on 252 at 479, Orestes says, "And Apollo shares the guilt. He spurred me on. He warned me of the pains I'd feel unless I acted, brought the guilty down. But were we just not? Judge us now. My fate is in your hands. Stand or fall. I accept your verdict." So he's the gods told him and kind of took control of it. Because earlier in this passage on page one of the pages in the beginning, Apollo sends another god down or a spirit with him and says, protect him, lead him, and protect him and lead him, and make sure he's all right. You're gonna feel pain once you're done, but this is the right thing to do. Trust me.
Yeah, totally. I think he's also confused too because he comes home and he feels revenge, I'm sure, when he learns of his mother doing this. And Apollo is telling him that he has to do this or he's going to suffer from sicknesses or whatever. And then he's talking about it with his sister about how much he wants to do this. And then the chorus is just egging him on, like, go do this already. And then at the end of the play, like you said, then they just say, oh, you're going to suffer. And now he's just like, probably in his mind, like, well, what I did was that actually justice? And I think he just wants him to feel like justice at this point.
Yeah, I think he feels that guilt because, like, in his mind, I'm sure, like, killing someone is, like, inherently wrong. You know, it's inherently wrong to kill. But I feel like his reasoning for it made it something different to him. I think. So, third question. Wow, it's a segue. Oh.
Right, so my OQ is about concerning the Furies. So the Furies sought justice for those who were killed by their own bloodline. There's a little backstory. It was their job only, and the Furies didn't care what the reason was for the crime. They were just there to enforce the justice regardless. So this type of justice seems effective and fair, knowing that the one who is guilty will pay for their crime. So my question is, was the Furies' justice flawed, knowing that they had to, knowing that there was this dramatic shift of power just at this certain time? Athena wanted this to happen.
So was their justice flawed? I think we can start there.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems a little harsh to me, personally, because it was like there's so much like nuance with certain things. I'm like, granted, like this, it's still killing, but if it was like, if it was done in self-defense, like if like your brother came at you with an intention to kill you and you killed them instead, like if it was self-defense and like you didn't want to do it, the Furies would probably still come to kill you because you killed your blood. And like, granted, that's not true with every crime, but I think that it's too black and white to just say anyone who ever kills anyone of your bloodline, you are going to be killed by these Furies. I don't think that it's fair or appropriate.
So do you think there should be no leeway at all, or do you think there should be leeway?
I think there should be leeway because, I mean, in any situation, there's a whole host of reasonings or like other things that are going on that would warrant maybe something not necessarily good to happen. Like over the years, like how like there are so many different possibilities of like events, happenings that that person would be killed for retribution for killing this person, but like was it really warranted? Like did they have a good reason to do it? Not that it's good to kill someone, but like there could be a reason for it that the Furies would overlook and not care about because they did the physical act of killing someone of the bloodline.
Well, probably since the Furies are so old and Athena and Apollo are so new, in the Furies' time, if people were murdering, then if they just showed it and just killed them in front of everybody and just said, you kill somebody, you're dead, that's probably how they kept everything in line. Because, like, the same thing with thieves in old times, they would get hung in the middle of the town or whatever. Every time you walk past them, you'd be like, oh, I'm not going to steal because that's going to be me.
Yeah.
So it's like, you do this, you die. It's setting laws that, when broken, will be punished with the same crime. So it's an eye for an eye.
Yeah, like how I can defend the Furies is they make the argument that making exceptions, like due to reasoning for these crimes, creates a circle of where they say the mothers and fathers will be at risk of suffering violence at the hands of children. So that's how they try and defend themselves, saying that there'll be this endless circle of violence if they don't act with this justice immediately. So I can see how it worked previously, and that's how I was able to agree with it, because it's
No. I could see like how that maybe could be agreeable. But I also think that the Furies, like Mr. Longfellow said, like what has been in the past, like this probably was like such a severe crime. But also what you were saying this earlier about how like where is the like if it's in self-defense, like how can you like there's no judgment, it's just automatically like you gotta die. And I think also like bloodline doesn't mean goodness. Like it doesn't mean that just because that person shares the same blood as you that like A, you're fond of them, or B, like you even have any ties to them beyond just like whatever your DNA is. And I think like the Furies, like their justice neglects the fact that maybe it wasn't self-defense, or maybe it was because this person did this, and like also they're jumping in and they're committing a crime of themselves by interjecting themselves into the situation. And I think like I can see how like the justice is intervening so that like these other future bloodlines don't get killed, like the parents don't get killed by the hands of their children. But at the same time, I think it's flawed because bloodline doesn't necessarily mean anything, and doesn't necessarily mean you have a tie to a person.
It's true. It seems like their justice is lacking in that sense, knowing that you might despise somebody due to the way that they're treating someone like Electra. I'm sure wants to kill her mother or like get rid of her because she's basically a slave right in their own house. So the Furies definitely don't take into account everything, and that could be very well why this shift of power of justice is taking place, and the whole reasoning for it.
That's a good segue into Miss Lamlin's question, which was, I feel like I'm being the host now.
No, you're fine. So my question had to do with the role of the youngness, I guess you could say, of Apollo and Athena in changing the rules of this whole justice game, and the role of like the antiquity of the Furies. The Furies have been around since like the beginning of time. And Athena, they even say to Athena, like, you're relatively new, you and Apollo, you can't do this, you can't change the way these punishments have been yielded before. So I guess my question is, like, why do you think this case with Orestes killing Clytemnestra is, like, warrants them to change the way that justice is given out?
So, like, why here, why now?
Yeah.
I feel like the Furies don't do what Apollo and Athena do. Apollo and Athena intervene and control people and get them to do things to take out people that they want, to better it and make it an outcome that they want. And I feel like the Furies just sit there and wait. And somebody kills somebody, and then they're there, justice, and then they're gone. They're in, they're out, they're gone. There's no Apollo and Athena intervening and taking control of this person and telling them to kill somebody, and then saying, okay, you're fine, you did what we asked, go on with business, we'll call you again.
I do think that, like, this isn't the first time that the gods have, like, intervened in, like, some situation.
Right.
So, like, wouldn't there have been, like, another time when they had someone like do this? Do you think that would be,
Well, I
we
think
don't know.
interesting too that like they're intervening with another like godly force. Like the Furies aren't necessarily like mortal creatures, but they're not necessarily like gods.
Yeah.
They are considered the older gods for some reason, but then they set themselves away from like Zeus and like.
They almost like remind me of like a small chorus of the gods. Like they have their own thoughts, they have their own feelings, but they only do this one like job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think why it might have been right now is because it was just such a mess. It was very confusing. Agamemnon coming up to all this, and then it was just a whirlwind of the stuff that happened that we read about. But I don't see how this couldn't have happened before. We didn't read about it, so I guess this is the biggest mess we've confronted.
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems right that
I
Athena would step in
yeah.
at this point.
I mean, there's a lot of talk of destiny and fate, and Athena says on page 252, when she's talking to Orestes and she's also talking to the Furies, she's saying like they have their destiny to, or she says on line 490, if you're innocent, I'd adopt you for my city, talking to Orestes, and then she turns to the Furies and she says, but they have their destiny too, hard to dismiss, and if they fail to win their day in court, how it will spread the venom of their pride, plague everlasting, blights our land, our future. So it stands a crisis either way. And I think like that also has to do with like the fact that they're like, oh, we're gonna rain down and destroy all your crops and all these different things. But I think it also has to do with like it's a metaphor for like crops, like the new generation, like the new seed of Athens. Like if you poison like Orestes, like almost a child, almost a new seed for this thing that he's done, like you've poisoned the well. Like this is gonna keep going on. And I think like we really don't have a precedent to go off of. Like we don't know of any other people that they've killed or that we've read. And I think that like what Athena's trying to say is that like he may like Orestes killing Clytemnestra may have been like the new like maybe no one else who killed their bloodline like had these reasons to kill them with the whole like familial like each person keeps killing them. So.
Yeah, I mean, Agamemnon kills his daughter, and then
Because Apollo told him to.
yes, and then Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon while she's in love with Aegisthus or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then Orestes has been banished from the city, and his sister is a slave in their house. So I could kind of see maybe this is like where Athena needed to step in and put her foot down.
And again, like why we were talking about this before, like why didn't they go after Agamemnon for killing his own daughter?
Right, like why wait so long for Orestes?
Yeah. But there was a moment when Orestes was like, why didn't you go after my mom? And they were like, they weren't related, they were not blood relations. And like that was a perfect point to be like, why didn't you go after my dad for, killing my sister? I mean, that's like a father killing his daughter. Is that not just as bad as the other way around?
Yeah, the Furies weren't like
Persistent.
Yeah, they weren't pursuing Agamemnon when he was on his way to Troy for that whole time.
I mean, they had 10 years to go after him. It just doesn't seem like consistent with what they were saying. It almost seems like they were being a little like hypocritical almost.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to state your IQ or OQ?
My
Your
IQ.
IQ.
My IQ is what is my IQ? Like 100 something. 132.
It's high.
Okay. So at the end of this whole trial, after the verdict is given and the Furies like freak out, Athena's like, whoa, 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 whoa! I'm gonna give you this land underneath the Acropolis and all of Athens for you to like hang out and live and like rule over. And we were talking about this in class, I think, a couple classes ago. Like, where do the Furies fit into like the new system? And like how, what is their role for the future? Like, they can't just forget about them. If they were, just like pretend that they're not there. Like, I don't know if that feels like wrong to me. Cause it's like you're kind of trying to forget the old system.
Mm-hmm.
And like, would they use the Furies for like if someone was guilty? It's just a little like they didn't like go into it at all. It's like where they would go, and like what their role would be, what their purpose was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe that Athena is trying to forget the Furies, and that's why she places them right below the Acropolis to like make them like serve as a reminder to where they were and where they've and how far they've come. So yeah, I don't think they want to forget about them, but they do want to move forward because they feel that, I guess, the justice that the Furies enforced, I guess, is no longer adequate because of this abrupt change. So,
I feel like it's going to be like our court systems today. Like they're technically like the Supreme Court and Athena and Apollo, but like the lower level courts, like they'll handle everything except when like family kills family or there's something severe, and then they'll call on the Furies to make that decision. So it's not on God's hands;
yeah,
it's on their hands.
that's true.
In one passage, 271, Athena says, only peace, line 9:14, only peace blessings rising up from the earth and the heaving sea. She goes down to all these different metaphors of like this imagery of like coming up from the soil, like how the light will shine, and she's talking to the Furies about like why why we're going to bind you to the land forever. And I think in a way, she like doesn't want them to leave because they say they're gonna like poison the earth and then they're gonna leave for some other like other city. And I think Athena likes the fact that they create this like a different dynamic. And I think by putting them below the earth, it below the Acropolis, below the earth, like it has some kind of like metaphorical innuendo that like justice will come, but like don't ever forget what the punishments were beforehand. Like not to say like, oh, you're getting off easy, Orestes, but that like the rules of justice have changed, and that like I think also it's a reminder that they could change again, maybe. You know, the fact that they are so close, they are right under the Acropolis, like they could come up at any time if you just like snaps her hands.
I think Athena's also like transforming them too, because I don't know how people viewed them. I'm sure they were terrified of these like winged like monsters or whatever they were.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like you're saying, she's using them to nourish the ground rather than poison the ground. And I think knowing that the Furies have lost this battle, they kind of want to just go out on a high note, I guess, and be remembered that way. And that's why Athena's like, we won't forget you, and we'll bury you here, and the people will know that you were here, and you're going to make things thrive.
Right. And she also says, this is a life I offer, it is yours to take. Do great things, feel greatness, greatly honored, share this country cherished by the gods. And I think also, like, she changed precedents, like, with Orestes' trial, and she's also changing it with the Furies. Like, if she were to just banish them, then it would just kind of be the same thing. Like, no, I'm going to stop you killing another person by banishing you from, like, what you've always done. And I think by saying, come live below the earth, come live with us, like, share in our, like, place, just kind of creating, like, not a utopia, but like a place where like the past killings and things like that can come to like live together and understand this new justice.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone have anything to add?
I just like reread this passage on 272 of Athena talking to the Furies, where she says, Theirs to rule the lives of men, it is their fated power, but he who has never felt their quakes or known the blows of life and how they fall. The crimes of his fathers hail him towards their bar, and therefore all his boasts, destruction, style, and injustice, and anger, cuts him in dust. So I feel like that's kind of like rereading it. It seems almost like an innuendo, not an innuendo, but like she's saying that like subtly that the Furies are there to rule the lives of men, as to be like, if you do this, like, and you don't have a good reason, and it's really you're guilty, like this is what happens, like eye for an eye, blood for blood. That does rule the lives of man. That's like how so many people live their lives. They live their life for like revenge and wanting to get justice.
Mhm.
Swift and just.
Yeah.
Like, they'll still be there. They'll
Yeah.
still be implemented.
Yeah,
But
and so it's like,
they'll take into account what they've just done
yeah,
in this new trial.
and it's like, but he who has never felt their weight, the weight of the Furies, who's never known their fury, will be like, well, I still know that this is still here and it's still a grave offense, and like this possibility is still real of being given over to the Furies, but it's kind of like incentive to not do that, as we were saying with the thieves, just in a different way, in a more modern way.
Yeah.
Where it's like more of a threat than the actual like this will happen to you.
Instead of having the Furies flying around, like scaring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a more modern, like just fair take on
Something like that.
yeah. Less intense for the modern world.
Alright. Anything else?
Signing off.
That
Thanks for
concludes our
watching.
discussion for Group D.
Masterpiece
Thank you.
of Greek tragedies.